All right, let's start with Adelaide. Now, of course, these over-unders are for Sportsbet. It's a guide for where your team is positioned. But as always, what's gambling really costing you? For free and confidential support, visit gamblinghelponline.org.au. We'll start with Adelaide. So Adelaide last year, they won 8 with a draw. They finished 15th. Into the side come Isaac Cummings, Sid Draper with the number 4 draft pick, Alex Neil-Bullen from Melbourne, Peatling from the Giants, and Tyler Welsh, who is a father-son. Sportsbet have Adelaide's over-under at 11.5. Kingy, are you going over or under?
Well, I like Matty Nix. I'm going over. Now, look, I think they underperformed last year. They were confused with selection, I felt, at the start of this season. We talked about their vanilla midfield. They worked out that Rankin needs to be serviced in that midfield like no other. I still think he has the capability of being the best player in the competition. We saw evidence of that late last year. He only played 15 games last year?
Yeah, he did that. After you declared him the best player in the comp, he ripped it up at the MCG and also ripped his hammy.
It was a shame, wasn't it? And Riley Thilthorpe only played the 7 games last year. So I think those two, getting full seasons out of those two or near enough to, would be enough to see them clear the 11.5. I'm a fan of how they play. I still think they're building talent, Cornsey, before they'll be a premiership threat. But I like the acquisition of Peatling. I think Peatling's a beauty. Isaac Cummings a bit of a ball user, so I think you can find that sort of player across the competition. But Peatling will add some hard, real tough, honest ball-winning capability in the midfield.
I'm going over as well. I'm going over the 11.5. I love their forward line. Rochelle will be better. Rankin, you mentioned. The thrill seeker is, I think, set to take the competition by storm if his body can hold up. Their midfield is solid. Soligo had a huge growth year last year. Rankin to spend more time through there as well. So I think they easily go over. I think they're going to win 13 home and away games this year. So we're both on the same page there.
13.
I should have explained as well, you get one lock. In the first group of 9, which we're doing this morning, you get one lock.
Rules,
so the most confident you are that team will either go over or under, okay? So I'm going to get to my lock very, very shortly. Let's move on to Brisbane, because last year they, of course, won the premiership. 14 wins and a draw throughout the home and away season. Into the side throughout the changes in the off-season, Levi Ashcroft was picked 5 in the draft, the father-son, of course. Sam Day came in for some cover for Joe Danaher, and then a couple of draftees. So nothing really notable other than Levi Ashcroft coming in and Joe Danaher going out. Sportsbet has their over-under at 14.5. Kingy, are you going over or under?
Gee, it's a good question, isn't it? This is a tough one for me. I'm probably going to go under. Look, they won the 14 last year. And Danaher is a massive out. 58 goals last year. 58-51. Like, it's a lot of shots. And I'm sure they've got the talent around the edges to cover for the bulk of that. But he was so good in those big games. I'm hard on Brisbane. I think it's really hard after a premiership. You become the hunted. We've seen that over the last couple of years, with the premiership teams. 14.5. It's very gettable. I'm probably going to go under, Cornsey, just because I think it's hard to back up.
I think I'm going to go over. I expect them to start 0-2, just because of how short their pre-season has been. They've had a lot of surgeries. They lose Danaher. They played Geelong in opening round on March 6th. Now, Brisbane haven't even started doing match play yet, and they've got a game, a proper game, in a month's time, under a month, and then they play Sydney at the SCG. But then they've got the Eagles and also Richmond, so I think they'll get their season back on track there. I just think their record at the Gabba, the amount of talent they've got coming back through ACL injuries, I think they're going to go over 14.5. I'm not confident. I'm not going to lock that in, but I'm going to go over there. Let's move on to the Blues. Last season, of course, they won 13.5. Coming into their side this year, a couple of Camporelli twins in the draft. Not sure how much Ben and Lucas will play this year, but I think in time they'll be good players. Nick Haynes to give them some cover defensively, and Jagger Smith is the big one, the number 3 draft pick. Sportsbet has their over-under at 13, Kingy, so less than last year. Are you going over or under?
This is a tough one, isn't it? 13.5. So you got to win 14 games. I'm probably leaning towards under, given that I think the Nick Newman absence is significant. Like he's more than just a lockdown defender. He's a counter puncher. He's a good ball user for them. He's a standard setter. I still am confused by who their centre half back is going to be. We had Jack Silvani on because he's the only one who'll talk to you in the football world last week. He spoke about maybe Nick Haynes being that player. I'm not sure whether Nick has got that role locked away. So I'm probably going under, but could quite easily see them jump and run.
Gee, they nail them, don't they? Like, this is why these gambling companies are so good. They've nailed this at 13.5. So I just can't trust their medical department. I'm going like the news of Sam Walsh is, whilst it's not serious, it's slightly concerning. Yeah, I think I'm going to go under as well. I think I'm with you on that one as well. So right now, Kingy's gone, both of us over for Adelaide. I've gone over for Brisbane. He's gone under. We are both under for Carlton as we move on to Collingwood. Had a rough year last year. They won 12 games and finished 9th. Coming into their side this season is a couple of big recruits. Dan Houston, the biggest of those. Membry comes in as a delisted free agent from the Saints. Harry Perryman, they paid a huge price to get as a free agent in terms of his contract. So there's the three big inclusions for the Pies. And their over-under for 2025 is 13.5. Kingy going over or under?
This is another one up. It's a perfect line, 13.5. For me, a lot better than last year. I look at the acquisition of Houston and how they'll use him. He won't just play half-back. I think they'll throw him around a fair bit off the back of stoppage and try and use him as a Nick Dacos Mark II. Membry, I like that acquisition. I think the Perryman offers a lot of flexibility. Can play anywhere, Perryman. Can go in the middle, can play a lot of wing, bit of half-back. But they are ageing. So 13.5, so they've got to get to the 14 wins. I probably think 13's about their mark. I'll probably sit at the under. I'm
going to go the under as well. I think they missed the 8. The Pies, I like their best
8.
I like their best 22, but if Sidebottom, if Howe, if McStay, if Elliott, if any of those players, if more these injury-prone players get injured, I think their depth is going to be exposed like few others. So we've both gone under, but I've confidently gone under on Collingwood. Let's move on to the Bombers.
Is that a lock? Is that confident? When you say confidently, is that a lock?
It's not a lock because I've got one more that I'm more confident in. Okay, and we've only got one lock, so that's coming up. The Bombers, 2024, they won 11 and a draw. They missed the finals after capitulating in the second half of the season. Coming into their side in the off-season, we've got not a whole lot, to be fair. Isaac Kako is the one of those, number 13 academy player. Other than that, there's a whole heap of draft picks. So they're in a different phase. There's no doubt there's some rebuilding-ish language coming out of Essendon this year, and that is why their over-under is as low as it is at 9.5.
It's exciting to watch what Caddy's doing forward of the ball. You can't bank it on Peter Wright at the moment, which is a concern. Even at training, he has great days and then he has really poor days. Stringer's absence, I know a lot of people are quick to hate Jake Stringer, and I think you're going to see the hole that he leaves. When he goes in the middle, he can create some chaos around centre bounce clearance, and he's actually a pretty good centre bounce player and still kick 40-plus goals. It's a lot to find in this group, because they don't have 3 or 4 guys that you can bank on kicking 20-plus goals for the year. 9.5 is low.
It's low, isn't it?
It's low.
So 8 and a draw last year, you finished bottom 4. That was Adelaide. So you're talking sort of 14, 15 on the ladder if you win under 9.5.
Well, I'm going to go over because I just think they have to get to 10 wins. I mean, is this third year Brad Scott?
It's going to be...
the 10 wins isn't. I think the Bombers fans would be seriously disappointed if they didn't win more than 9 games.
You're going to go over. I'm going to go under. I think it's a bottom 4-ish year for Essendon. I'm not that confident, which is going to be a disaster, I know. Which brings us to Fremantle, who won 12 games and a draw last year. They finished 10th after losing the last 4 games of the season. Would you believe their changes in the off-season? The big one is Shea Bolton, the trade in. They paid a huge price to get him from the Tigers. Then some draftees coming into the side. Their over and under for 2025 is 12.5. Kingy, the Dockers, I think you like them.
Lock this one in. plus
Lock.
12.5.
Is this your lock?
This is my lock. Freo winning 13 games plus. Absolutely no doubt about that. They've been on the right trajectory. They've tinkered with how they've played the last couple of years. But when you look at what Jai Amos has done in the off-season, he's a chance to be a 50-plus goal kicker this year. To go from 36 to 50, I don't think it's a massive jump for this young man. I think Hayden Young has become that centre-forward damaging player that we see. They've got better stocks with Bolton going into that forward line now. They've just got 4 or 5 players you need to look at in terms of not necessarily tagging, but making sure the team's aware of what the damage that they could bring to any given game. I think their leadership's really strong. They've got a great back six. Mm-hmm. It's just about can this coach get the best out of this team in the big games? And do they have a rusted-on way of playing that's going to beat the best teams? They're the challenges for every team, but they're the challenges for this team in 2025.
Fair question. Kingy's lock is Fremantle to win more than 12.5 games. I'm not locking them in, but definitely over. I think they're a good chance of playing off in a prelim final this year, and they have the tools to be able to do that. What's your thoughts? 0433 98 11 16. Send us through your thoughts as we work our way through this. We're up to Geelong. Of course, they won 15 games before losing in the prelim final against Brisbane. Their changes in the off-season, the big one is Bailey Smith coming in to give them a bit of flexibility on ball wing, half forward. Other than that, a whole heap of draftees come into the side, but Bailey Smith is the big one. Their over and under for 2025, the Cats, is 13.5. Once again, they've nailed this. I'll start. I'm going to go over. I just refuse to bet against this coach ever again. I think the access that they have to the strongest home ground advantage, where they'll play, I haven't looked exactly, but usually 9 or 10 games at GMHBA, is a tough place to go and play. I think they've got a core group of players coming through together. I think Sam de Koning is going to be a far superior player and athlete to what he was last year, and I hope he can rediscover his best. They've got a rock-solid game style. Their small forwards are damaging and elite, and they've still got enough star players in their prime to get them more than 13.5 wins. So I think they play finals again. I think they're going to be around the mark. I'm going over. Kingy, what about you?
13.5. If Max Holmes can absolutely, completely take over from Patrick Dangerfield, they blow past that. But I'm still have my reservations that if Patrick Dangerfield doesn't have the same sort of year that he's always had, then they're in a bit of strife. I mean, he's 34 years of age now. It's about time that someone else really takes full control. The loss of Hawkins, whilst people say, he didn't do much last year, he didn't do this, he didn't do that, I still think you're losing senior core players that show the way, whether it be during the week or at training or just a lifestyle discussion or just in awe of these guys. There's a cost when they leave your football club. Zach Tui is a big loss for them. And people say, I haven't done much. I understand that, but they're senior core bodies that do have an effect when they move on. I'm going under, but I would expect that they would be winning 12 or 13 corners. I just can't sign off on 14 plus.
Okay, I've gone over. Kingy has gone under for...
Just before you leave the Bailey Smith discussion, What are you expecting of him for the year?
I don't know. I can't confidently answer that question because for me, he's a confusing player. I've seen him rip big finals apart in his first or second year, and you go, this guy is a potential top line player. And then there was clearly frustration of the role that he was playing. I don't think his ball use is at the level that it needs to be yet. So what is his decision making? What's his skill execution like? Because that lets him down. Finding the footy, no worries, particularly if he's playing wing on ball. So I don't know. I need to see it before I'm convinced again that he has the potential to be an A grader.
Yeah, and if he's not absolutely an A grader, then that midfield's a little bit what it's been the last couple of years.
Yeah, and they were forced to use Tom Stewart in the role, that defensive mid cover that we saw last year. So we'll wait and see whether Tom Stewart plays that role throughout the pre-season and for the majority of the year, or whether they settle him back down to the 5-time All-Australian beast that he is across half-back. Gold Coast.
Hang on.
Gold Coast.
Hang on.
Gold Coast Suns. They were disappointing last year. There's no doubt about that in terms of their home and away record, particularly their away record. Their changes in the off-season, Nothing, well, there is significant because Noble and Rioli come in. Clearly, they've identified that running half back. They've got a couple of those ready-made, slot them in, good to go, paid a huge price for Rioli, an extraordinary price, and they've identified that. Their over and under is so low. Their over under this year is just disrespectfully low at 11.5. So lock it in. Absolutely lock it in. If Gold Coast aren't winning 12 games this year, it is a complete and utter disaster with the list that they've got. So this is the easiest one of the whole lot, Gold Coast to win more than 11.5. Do you agree?
Ooh. They should be winning more than 11.5, yeah. They should have been better over the last couple of years than what they've been. I'm a fan. You know where I sit with this group. They walked four guys in that were top 20 picks last year that will be better for an extra preseason. So I would expect that Jed Walter would go next level. Rogers I'm a fan of. Haven't seen enough of Reid. Will Graham I'm a fan of. They've got enough senior core star factor players in the middle of the ground. They've just got to find a way to get serious, to actually get serious and get busy. Playing the Damien Hardwick game plan is a challenge and something that some of these guys physically weren't equipped for last year. So they go and get Rioli and Noble who are plug and plays. So they just play half back. Now Rioli, the way he plays, is so complementary to the way the Suns want to move the ball. It's frightening. So I think he'll have a huge impact on this group, but. This is not a talent discussion.
Nope.
It's a performance discussion. Can you actually just get busy delivering on what you guys have got as a group of 40 odd? But let's be honest, they're top 25. They're elite talent.
Absolutely stacked. I want less talk, more action from Gold Coast. There's been far too much talk coming out of that club for far too long. Let's see if the performance can live up to the talent that is on the list. So lock that in at 11.5. We're both going over. All right, the final team that we're doing this morning is GWS. In 2024, I can't just have lost how many games they won in terms of the home and away season, but of course disaster in the finals after being in 2 winning positions, and good enough probably when they're sitting there watching on grand final day going, we should be in this game and we probably should be competing right to deep in the last quarter of winning a premiership. So it was disappointing in terms of the trade changes that they made in the off-season. The package, Jake Stringer comes in from the Bombers and then a whole heap of draft picks. They did lose a couple though, Kingy. I think that's important. Isaac Cumming, of course, went to Adelaide. Haynes was a free agent, went to Carlton. Kennedy retired, played a lot of footy for them. Peatling was traded to Adelaide. Perryman went to Collingwood and Braden Pruce was delisted. So just in terms of the depth that they've lost and some experience, they probably lost more than any other club. Their over and under for 2025 is 14.5. I know you're a fan.
Oh, I'm a huge fan. I'm a huge fan. And they're not looking for a lot. They were looking for someone to support Toby Green, who had a flat year last year, come back to relative terms of what do you expect from a player in that position at that age. But he needs to find, and he will. He's their leader. He's their man. But Stringer will come into this lineup, Corns, and he'll be more than just a permanent forward. He'll be able to go in, and I think they've lacked this player. At time, it's been Canelio go in and rip, tear, and bust and surge forward out of those stoppages. Green's a different operator. He's a stand and deliver type. I think the game's going to those guys that can break tackles and step out of traffic like a Stringer does. I think he'll excite. It may be a short-term thing with Jake Stringer. His first year at the new club may be his best, but they're there to win it. Should have won it probably last year when you look at the 7 goals up against Brisbane in a semi-final and let it slip. 14.5, I think they'll be winning 15 plus. I've got them probably, definitely prelim final weekend, if not further.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. So 15 they won last year. I think they equal that. I think they're good enough to do that. I think there's going to be a motivation factor for this side, probably not like many other teams, and I think that will just burn. And I think last year would have burnt, and it's hard to measure the impact that can have on a side throughout the season, particularly a side with as many competitive players as they have, who are now starting to run out of some time. So, I'm not super confident, but I think they can get to 15 wins throughout the home and away season.
Are you bullish on Stringer?
Not really. No, you've just been...
Why not? What are your slows?
I've just been burnt too many times on Jake. Like, I think he's a bit of a flat track bully, Kingy. I think he's a bit of I'm going to absolutely load up against poorer sides. I don't have the information in front of me that how many goals he's kicked against bottom four sides versus top four, but my gut feel would be he beats up on poorer sides, and I just don't think Essendon would have allowed him to leave for nothing, essentially, if he was a bona fide. But he's going into a good system with a strong coach and a better forward structure, so maybe that's going to help him. He's not going
I know it annoys you that he's turned up in better condition than the past.
It's taken him 10 years.
Well, but it does. It is a formula that works, and whether you like it or not, or whether it's too late or not, he's been a bloody good AFL player, and they're not looking for a lot. They're just looking for one or two more contributors forward of centre. What did he kick last year against the top 8 teams? He kicked 17 goals in his 9 opportunities. So 2 goals a game against the best. Yeah, it's not bad.
Solid. Yep. Have you got bottom? Have you got the bottom?
Well, he kicked
8.
42 for the year, so 25 in. He would have gone 2.5 goals a game against the others.
Yeah. All right.
Not a massive difference.
No. So we're up to the Hawks, Kingy. Their over and under is 14.5. Last year they won 14 and 9 losses. They won the elimination final against the Western Bulldogs. Of course, they nearly got it done against Port Adelaide as well in that semi-final. In the big ones, Josh Battle comes in as a free agent from St Kilda. Tom Barrass comes in from West Coast. And then some draft picks in and around that. 14.5. They won 14 last year. Are you going over or under?
Now, I'm over on the Hawks, and it's hard not to be impressed and excited about what they've done so quickly. And you look at their off-season acquisitions over the last few years. They've just hit hit the mark perfectly every time. What Barrass and Battle will give them behind the ball, such stability, and the domino effect of being able to use Sicily where you need him.
Yep.
They've been desperate to get Hardwick as a permanent forward. They get that luxury now. They're very healthy. You go out and see them train. They're incredibly healthy. Will Day back in and looking fresh and ready to go. All things say they're in for a big year, the Hawks.
Yep. No, I'm over on the Hawks as well. I don't really see a weakness in their lineup. Maybe they're key position forwards, but when you say, Sicily, you've got Weddle, who you can be flexible with. You can be a bit more dynamic. They've got the best crop of small to midfield forwards, the high half forwards in the competition. They run harder than anyone, and I just don't see a weakness. So I think they finish top 4. Hawthorn. Let's go to Melbourne.
I just did delist Denver Granger Barrass.
He was an all-star. He was a 5-ball all-star.
He's original.
He's an original all-star. So I've had to crash him out. He's exited the all-star group. Yeah, I was flat about that.
When you do your ladder, will you? Yeah, but you'll have to nominate a premier.
Yeah, not at that. I'm not at that stage yet. It's just a fraction early, but they'll be one of 3.
Well, you're not going to
teams.
You're going to have to do it before round 1.
Yeah,
there's 24 sleeps, mate.
That's okay.
We're nearly there.
They'll be one of 3 teams who I consider as my premiership tip this year. Let's move on to the Demons. They were in the news over the weekend. We'll get to that later. Melbourne, their over under is 11.5. Last year, they won 11, they lost 12. They finished 14th, would you believe? Into their lineup this season, the off-season, Tom Campbell's a free agent. He's not going to move the needle. Harvey Langford, the number 6 draft pick, I know you like. But other than that, they weren't that active in the trade period in terms of bringing experience in. Out goes some experience in Brayshaw, of course, retired. They didn't have access to him last year. Ben Brown also. Alex Neil-Bullen was traded. Shaki was delisted. Joel Smith was delisted. And Adam Tomlinson's delisted. So there was some experience that has gone out of the lineup. Kingy, 11.5 for the Demons, over under.
I know it will be different on this one, but I'm definitely over.
A lock? Is it a lock?
No, I've done my lock. My lock was Freo.
Well, we got one more in the next 9 as well. So there's a lock from each 9.
Oh, they're not lock worthy.
Okay.
But when you look at Christian Petrarca, only played the 13 games last year. He's their most dynamic score machine. He's the one that creates everything. They had so much trauma. I mean, you look at the ins and outs of this lineup, and you're staying on field. I think the off field shake-up that's happened behind the scenes with the president, the CEO. There's just a greater sense of unity at Melbourne right now than what there's been for some time. I think they've had some honest conversations. Some of them would have been tough to have. And in talking with those there, including the coach and Christian and Alan Richardson, it's all systems go. They're good enough. Their top 6 players are as good as anyone's. I just think you could back them in because, they lost Alex Neil-Bullen, really. That's about all they've lost. I mean, Brayshaw wasn't there last year. Really, they haven't lost a lot, Cornsey.
So you're banking on the better performance from Oliver, better performance from Lever May, better performance from Petrarca. I mean, Gawn, you can't ask for much more than that. But
Van Rooyen's going to have a fantastic
Van
year.
Rooyen
improvement. He's a young full forward.
This is a difficult one. That's why they get the over and under spot on. I think they've nailed it. Can Melbourne win 12 games and be on the cusp of the 8? Absolutely they can.
Are you a yes?
I'm an under, but not with any confidence. I don't know how they get better.
Well, they just get healthier, and they get more out of those senior players. I mean, Clayton Oliver couldn't have had he spent the whole year under the AFL microscope, didn't he? And the club with the handling of the Petrarca thing, it's just constant distraction at this footy club. So I can see them settling, and can they finish top 4? Can they really make a serious charge? I mean, the talent's there.
Feels more of a reset kind of rebuild. Talk a lot about our younger players type of year to Melbourne. Get our game plan. It's a new game plan. He's starting from scratch and a whole new game plan, whole new footy department essentially. How's that going to go? I think there's going to be some teething issues. I'm an under, not confidently at all. Let's move on to Port Adelaide. 13.5 is their over-under. 16-7 they went last year. They finished the home and away season in second position. Coming into their side, Rory Atkins. Big recruit, Rory Atkins. Joe Berry was the number 15 draft pick. Lukosius came in. He was the biggest name of that. Then Joe Richards to give them some small forward depth. 13.5, so a significant drop in their over and under. There's not a lot of faith in what they can achieve this year. Kingy, are you over or under on Port Adelaide?
They're a tough one. I find it really hard to assess Port. When they're on, they look brilliant, and their ball movement's really exciting. I just think the loss of Dan Houston is going to be tremendous. It's going to have a significant impact on all of your ball movement patterns, all of your aggression. I like the Lukosius coming in and just being a player in that forward line. I think he can certainly hit the scoreboard for you. What else has come in? Really, I mean, not a lot.
Not a whole lot. No, it's going to be. I mean, I've always questioned the strength of their playing list. That's just my view on it. I'm an under for Port Adelaide. I think they're far too reliant on Aaliyah, and the key position backs just probably aren't at the quality of the best sides in it. And then there's some question marks around their forward line. Todd Marshall won't play. Georgiades was excellent and has been training well, but can Georgiades and Lukosius stand up? Can Ollie Lord get back to what he looked like he was going to be in the final series of 2023? I'm not sure.
I think Pal Pepper was important for them the year previous.
He's like your spiritual leader for the footy club. He's in the leadership group now and plays a really important role. So he was a big out. And then they lost some some running halfback flankers in Houston with suspension, and Kane Farrell with that hammy late for the final series, which hurt. But 13.5 is about right. I'm going to go under. I think they missed the 8 this year.
And I think this two coach thing will have some. I reckon there's going to be some teething pains in the first 6 weeks for this footy club this year.
All right.
They just didn't make a big call there where they had to.
I glossed over North Melbourne, so let's get to your Kangaroos.
Glossed over North Melbourne.
I didn't. It was an oversight.
They've been your favourite.
It's an oversight. I'm back, and I'm back. I'm back in a big way with my North Melbourne Kangaroos. Well, their over under is 5.5. This is an absolute lock to go over. Gamble responsibly, of course, thanks to our friends at Sportsbet. 5.5. They will smash through 5.5 North Melbourne. They'll win 8 games. Last year, 3-20, finished 17th. Didn't tell the full story of where they are at. If they're not winning 6 games this year, I will be absolutely staggered. This is an absolute lock it in. The midfield is stacked. They've got some key position players now in position that they needed to be. They got some health. Yes, Wardlaw hurts, but they've got replacement for Wardlaw. This is the biggest lock of the year, North Melbourne to win more than 5.5. Can you tell me you're with me on this? Don't play down expectation.
Me?
Yeah.
Mate, if they win 5 games or less, Alistair Clarkson should walk in and say, I haven't been able to get it to happen.
Yeah.
I haven't done what I thought I'd be able to do with this group and vacate. because this you're right. There's so many reasons why they should be more competitive than they've been. Let alone, we've lowered the bar everywhere, haven't we? Like 3 wins last year, three wins.
And conceded the most, like they're defensively the poorest side, which says something because we had some poor sides last year. So they've just got to tidy up the defensive aspect of their game. Don't worry about the North ball and all that rubbish we heard this time of last year. I'm glad we're not hearing any of that. Tighten up defensively, buy in defensively, restrict the opposition to under 100 points repeatedly, and they'll be in positions to win games. So they should have won 5 last year. You're right. If they're not winning 5.5, I think the North fans would rightly be furious. So that is a lock it in for me. We will get to Richmond.
I feel like you're setting them up. I feel like you're just trying to put
the dark
on
times are over.
tea.
I don't think they'll make the 8, but I think 8 wins
the 8.
is more than realistic. Yeah, the progression should have almost been, okay, we're starting to think about the 8. Like if they'd won 8 last year, which is where I thought they were sort of at, then would be starting to talk about it. It's almost like they've lost a year, but they'll be hard to beat this year, North Melbourne. Don't worry about that. We are up to Richmond. 2.5 is there over under the Tigers.
2.5?
Yep, they won 2 and lost 21 last year. They finished dead last, of course. And then the exodus happened throughout the trade period. So coming into their side is a whole host of great draft picks, like marquee draft picks led by Sam Lawler at pick 1, Josh Smiley at number 7, Trainer at 21. They also traded out some picks to get themselves in good positions for the future, but out the big ones. Baker's gone, Bolton's gone. They're the 2 big ones. Graham is gone, Grimes retired, Martin retired, Pickett retired, and Rioli was traded to the Gold Coast. But surely they can still win 3 games for the year. Like GWS,
you're going over.
Well, I don't know. I don't know how I'm feeling. But GWS in their second year with a group of 18-year-olds won 2 games. Like surely this group with Lynch and there's enough players, Vlosten and Prestia and Hopper and Taranto and Nankervis win more than 2.5 games. Kingy.
So you're over.
There's 23 games. If this team can't win,
I just want to hear you say it. Who are they going to beat?
Well, we always think that. We always think that, don't they? But you would think, who would the Giants beat when they're full of 18-year-olds? Well, they always get 1.
Yeah, but they're all 15 top 5 picks.
Yeah, well, Richmond have got 15 top 5 picks now.
Well, they had 7 in the top 28 last year, so that's the absolute start of it. But Fox Sports put up a likely round 1 lineup,
yeah.
right? And it's not good reading.
He's going under 2.5.
I'm going under.
Well, how many games are going to win? 2 or 1?
Less than 2.5. I don't have to give you
disaster.
I don't have to give you an exact number. Well, I mean, they're going to get an opportunity against the West Coast, maybe the Kangaroos, if you think they're down there, maybe St Kilda with all their injuries.
St Kilda, can you pinch Essendon?
They're not going to pinch 4 wins. They might pinch 1 or 2.
They've only got to pinch 3.
All right, well...
I'm going over, you're going under. But let's not spend too much
much
time on Richmond because they are largely irrelevant this year, unfortunately, from where they have been. St Kilda, now their over-under is low at 9.5. Low.
Has it been adjusted? Has it been adjusted since the weekend?
I don't know if it's been adjusted. That's a good question. But I think Max is okay, so that's the good news out of that. He escaped serious damage with that. What was feared would be another ACL, but it's not, so he's okay. So 9.5, they went 11 and 12 last year. They finished where they finished a lot of the time, and that is in a football quicksand right in the middle at 12. I'm going under. I think they finished bottom 4, but 9.5. I mean, there was only not many teams lost more than that last year in terms of that as an over and under. So I'm going under. Where do you land with the Saints and Ross?
Yeah, the injuries worry me. We haven't really been given a lot of information about the key 3 from the weekend.
No, what they did say for those catching up, so Sinclair and Wood with some soft tissue stuff, hammy and a quad respectively, and King with the knee, they released a statement saying it's looking positive for all 3, but the club is on their 4-day break. So they will be reassessed after their 4-day break because AFL players don't get enough time off, so they get another 4-day break and then they're assessed after that. You can't assess them in their time off, Kingy. Don't assess a serious knee injury for a player who's contracted until 2032. He's on his 4-day break. We can't assess him. We'll update our fans after the 4-day break. Like, don't get me started. Oh. Anyway, so that's
24
the
days.
latest.
It all starts in 24 days.
Oh.
It has been adjusted. It was 10.5 down to 9.5. No, I'm with you. I think that the loss of Battle, I think, will be realised early in the piece. He's a star factor centre half back. And everyone says, just because he's left St Kilda, now you're talking him up. We've always liked him. I like McRae. I think he'll play a lot of footy for him in the middle, but they're still in the development phase for me. And I know I get hammered for saying that. I think Ross gets absolutely the lot, the max out of this group. But this group is probably an 8 or 9 win team.
We're up to the Sydney Swans, Kingy. Their over-under is 14.5. They went 17-6 and finished first in the home and away season last year. In terms of what they've done in the trade period, who comes in? Not a whole lot. They haven't done much at all. Just a whole heap of draft picks coming in, and not high-quality draft picks in terms of the number either out. Nothing significant other than Luke Parker, who has been traded to North Melbourne, and Sam Reid, who retired. I'm going over. I don't see that there's a way in which they've gotten worse. It is one of the strongest home-ground advantages that you can get, the SCG. I think Dean Cox is going to give them a nice little boost as well, just in terms of an injection of enthusiasm and energy. That maybe get some more footy out of Callum Mills, and who knows what Taylor Adams can provide in terms of depth. There's enough there. I know you're not sold in terms of their lineup and where you see them in the race for the premiership. You had them a little bit further back in regards to some of the other teams, but I don't see how they go under 14.5. I'm going over.
I just don't think their list has got better. And so that's the discussion we're fundamentally having. Is what's the angle this year? So they're going to try McCartan forward? Well, there's a gamble there. I don't necessarily see that being a big boom. Angus Sheldrick is the one. He's the one player that can move the needle. Pick 18 3 years ago now, or 3 drafts ago. He's ready to go. Just couldn't get on the track last year. Had an ankle problem from minute one, and just really we didn't see him at all. So he's the one, by all reports through the pre-season period, has stepped up. If he can ease the load and give them Heaney more forward minutes. Now, I know it works for Heaney being a midfielder that can get forward and hit the scoreboard, but they need him to be a forward. Their forward line needs that wild card option still in there for them. I feel, are you going to get the same season out of the key three in Heaney, Warner and Goulden? Not sure. It was an extraordinary levels of the first 14 weeks of the season. I just don't know if they can replicate that. So I'm on the unders here, because I just think about 14. It's a great line, 14.5. It's a perfect line.
It is. They always are.
They always are. But I'm probably going to say, okay, the disappointment of the grand final. We've seen so many teams.
You don't see them as premiership contenders.
They wouldn't be in my first 3. No, right. And it's hard. We're talking about games are going to be 7 months away, but I just feel it's the same group that they're coming off extreme disappointment. We've seen teams plummet out of the final series the following year with results like that. So it's a wait and see.
All right, let's move on to the West Coast. Their over-under is 5.5. Last year they went 5-18. They finished 16th coming into their side in the trade period. In terms of the experience, Jack Graham was a free agent from the Tigers, of course, and Matt Owies was a good get, I thought, for Carlton. They essentially got him for not a whole lot. Bo Allen was their pick number 16 in the draft. Tom Gross was a slider in the draft, but they're happy to have him. And other than that, some other draftees that have come in and rookies. So not a whole lot. They've lost Tom Barras, which was the big one. Jack Darling, I don't think is going to hurt them. He's off to North Melbourne. And Andrew Gaff played a lot of footy, of course, has retired. Have they gotten better under a new coach this year, Kingy, at 5.5?
5.5. Well, you'd think they'd get to 6 wins. I mean, they got that home ground advantage.
You'd hope so, wouldn't you?
You'd think the kid would go crazy in a couple of games again, as he did last year, and another year of another pre-season under the belt, a bit more know-how, a bit more understanding of what's required. Yes, their key players continue to get injured, and I know you've talked a lot about Elliot Yeo and those sorts of guys, but I think Graham gives them a bit of depth in the midfield. He's not a Hall of Fame level player, but they just need volume in there. Owies might be able to hit the scoreboard for them. Baker, I really like Baker as a player.
So do I.
Can play anywhere. They'd be getting the 6 wins.
Yeah, no, I'm going over as well. I think they, just on the back of the new coach bounce, that gives them another win, I would have thought, and some experience coming in and hopefully a little bit healthier. So I'm going over for the West Coast, but clearly it's going to be a long road before they're in contention once again. And lastly is just a fascinating team. They're a fascinating team every year, the Western Bulldogs. Their over-under is reasonably low at 12.5, considering they went 14-9 and finished 6th last year. They started slowly, but this year there's been some issues in terms of personnel, and that's going to be, in relation to where they finish with how much footy does Hugo Hagen play? Can Norton stay sound? Can English stay sound? Can Jones stay sound? So they've had some injuries. Treloar's the other one with a nasty calf, not going to play for the first parts of the season. Coming into their side this year, not a whole lot once again, other than Matt Kennedy was the one. Then some drafted players come in. They lost some experience in McRae and also Caleb Daniel, who was traded to North Melbourne. Alex Keith retired. And Bailey Smith was traded to Geelong, but of course didn't play last year. Kingy, 12.5. Will the Western Bulldogs go over or under?
Ooh, you're right.
You're essentially saying, are the Western Bulldogs going to play finals? Because 13 will get you in. Are the Western Bulldogs a top 8 side, is what we're saying with this over-under.
Well, they are, as long as number 4 keeps playing like number 4 has always played. Like if he dips 5% and exposes the rest of the list, then the easy answer is no. He hasn't dipped for the last 6-7 years. He's just been that player every time. Now, he's still only 29 years of age, so he's still in his sweet spot. So you don't expect him to drop off at all. But I'm just not sure. I'm just not sure what's there to support him this year. I know Ed Richards has been a terrific midfielder over the last 20 games or so, and he's going to get more opportunity. Sanders looks terrific. He's physically looks a different size, a different shape.
He lost 5 kilos, he said.
Yeah, and you can just see it by looking at him. I really like Jordan Croft. I'm hoping that they give him an opportunity, whether it be wing or that one of those running half forward, half back type positions at the start of the season. He's very good. Darcy's the one. Sam Darcy is the man. He could be the biggest thing in footy in 2025.
Agree with that.
No Jamara down there.
Is he now Fireball All-Star? Is he an All-Star or too late?
Probably too late.
I think we missed the boat on him.
We missed the boat, did we? What's he played? 30 games of footy or something? 20 games of footy? No, I think that he could.
Are you over or under?
Well, I'm over, but not by a lot.
Not by much.
I'm just getting out, just making the 8.
I'm going under for the Western Bulldogs.
What a surprise!
I think they will miss the 8.
What a shock!